What happened when God moves without us? The first time I ever went to a drag show, I felt what church should be like. I'm not talking about the heels and the makeup and the big hair. That's fun and interesting and entertaining. But the first time I arrived, curious, nervous, unsure of how I would be received, and yet I was met with a space of hospitality, of welcome, of non-judgment, of come as you are, of be awkward, be afraid, feel like you're a misfit, and this is a place for you. The performers, they made room for those like me who would rather be in a corner, uncertain and afraid, curious, embracing them still with joy and care. They had this amazing gift of reaching across racial and gender divides, even bridging generational gaps. You had young people rejoicing, you had older people dancing, creating an atmosphere where people felt safe in their bodies from the destruction of society. People felt safe emotionally. People felt safe in their souls, in that creative and loud and boisterous, in that irreverent space. I encountered something deeply sacred, unconditional acceptance, celebration, joy, expansiveness, safety. It struck me, isn't this what church is supposed to be? It struck me that while so many churches struggle to create spaces of true belonging, I mean, we make committees, we make policies, struggle. We debate, we vote on who belongs. Here was a community doing that. Here was a community showing me this is how you be a neighbor. Here was a community welcoming me as an outcast. Here was a community making room at the table. Now, friends, this would not be the first time I ever learned how to be a neighbor from a stranger, or for those I had been taught to fear. It wouldn't be the last. In our story today, we see another example of a stranger teaching us how to be a neighbor. In our story today, we see that God is not confined to the spaces we expect or the people that we expect, and that sometimes God moves without us, beyond our boundaries, and even amongst people we overlook. The question is, do we have the eyes to see it? You may have heard this story before. This parable is so popular that people, even outside of the church, know the story of the Good Samaritan. And there's a number of ways to preach it. I've heard many, many sermons on this text. And a lot of people are focusing on, this kind of individualized, reaching across boundaries, being a neighbor, offering a helping hand. But for me, what I find most interesting is who is the hero in the story? Who is the one that has something to teach? It's a familiar story, right? This man is traveling on this dangerous road. He's attacked, he's beaten, he's left for dead. He is passed by a priest. He is passed by a Levite, two religious leaders, people we expect to be models of godliness, people we expect to be models of righteousness, and yet neither of them stop. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they were worried that touching a dead man or a half dead man would make them unclean. Maybe they worry that if they touched him, the people who beat him up would come for them too. Maybe they just didn't want to get involved. Maybe they thought somebody else will do it. Whatever their reasons, they just keep walking. And then comes the Samaritan, where the story takes this sharp turn. Of course, we know that in this community, a Samaritan is not a neutral character. Samaritans were not just outsiders to the ancient Jewish people. They were literally seen as religious and racial enemies. They were seen as traitors, people who corrupted worship. They worshiped differently, they believed differently, they had a long history of hostility with Jewish people. They were seen as outsiders. There was a deep-seated mistrust and hostility between these two groups. It's interesting in the passage when Jesus says which one of these people was a true neighbor, the man doesn't even say the Samaritan. He says the one who showed mercy. He can't even say the name. The level of disdain is so clear. And yet it is the Samaritan who stops. And yet it is maybe the drag queens who actually show true worship, true embrace, true belonging. It is the Samaritan who stops, the one who sees the wounded, unlike the religious leaders. He sees the man and his suffering. He does not look away. He does not cross over to the other side of the road. The Samaritan one, the weird one, the eccentric one, the one that we are supposed to hate, is the one who binds the man's wounds. He lifts him onto his own animal and takes him to an inn where he personally ensures that he will be cared for. He leaves money with the innkeeper, promising to cover any additional costs. He has this elaborate show of love and acceptance. And so, yes, there are many ways that this sermon could be preached, many ways this passage has been preached. But today, what I'm seeing is that this story is much more than just helping somebody in need, just helping somebody who's different from you. One of the most challenging aspects of faith is learning to see people beyond the rigid categories that we've been taught. Like, we like to believe that there are clear distinctions and clear binaries of people, the good people, the evil people, our friends, our enemies, us versus them. But the truth is, humans are so complex. Nobody is ever one thing. The same person who can act with kindness in one moment can also cause harm in another. And the people who are religious and who go to church and who are priests in the story are the ones who fail to act. They fail to show compassion. What do we do with that? You're supposed to be the good people, and you cross the road to avoid this man. And the Samaritan, who's supposed to be the evil one, supposed to be the one who doesn't care, who's corrupting worship, who leads us astray. The Samaritan, the one least expected to do what's right, is this example of neighborliness. The Samaritan is the one who sees the man fully. This is a radical reversal. Jesus is intentionally teaching this man that he's talking to, this man who is testing him, who's provoking him. Jesus is intentionally trying to get under his skin. I know you're not even going to say Samaritan. You can't even say the name, but what if it's a Samaritan who is actually the hero of the story? Jesus forces his listeners to confront their own biases and assumptions of what these people are capable of. This parable challenges our tendency to define goodness based on identity rather than a moment, an action. It asks us to consider who are the people that are other, but not only that, but who are the people that we assume have nothing to teach us about God? That's even a more compelling question to me. Those people, those performers that have nothing to teach us about God and sometimes do church better than we do church. Who are the people that we would struggle to receive help from if we were the man who had been beaten? And what I find even more interesting is the story forces us to confront this sometimes uncomfortable truth for Christians is sometimes the people that we least expect are the ones actually doing God's work. And if we refuse to participate in the love, compassion, justice that God invites us to be a part of, well, God will find somebody else. It is one of the most disruptive truths for me in this parable. The person who does the will of God is not the one we expect. It's not the religious insiders. It's not the ones cast aside who are the ones doing the wrong. Jesus makes it clear that God is here to shadow all of our human categories. The Spirit moves wherever there is love, wherever there is compassion, wherever there is justice, even in the places that we would be afraid of. If Jesus were telling this parable today, who are some of the people who might play the role of the Samaritan? Who are the people that may be written off or that we wouldn't think to look, and yet are leading the way? Yet are teaching us lessons and showing us how to be Christians, even if they never use that word. I think about places we've been where we've had the opportunity to meet people from our wider community. Places where people are able to show up as their full, authentic selves without fear, where they're able to show us a love that is more expansive, more inclusive, people who have been treated as outsiders and yet have the courage to step into a church, they teach us what it is to be Christian, even if they never call themselves Christian. There are those leading initiatives, leading justice movements, leading nonprofits who have long embodied radical hospitality, mutual aid, resilience in the face of oppression, often filling the gaps left by institutions that can't care for us. Sometimes it is those activists who are cast aside as dangerous, too radical, too unruly that are actually teaching us how to be neighbors. People of other faiths, for example, there are those closest to me in my life who are not Christian and yet are the people who teach me how to be Christian. Like, you don't believe what I believe, but you show me what it should look like. You show me how to do it. You show me how to articulate it. You show me where my blind spots are. And so, what I think is really beautiful is who are the people that God teaches us to be Christian that aren't the priest, that aren't the Levite? What might we learn from those we've been conditioned to hate? I love this idea that God moves even in spite of us. Sometimes even in our midst, we just aren't paying attention. We just don't know the names of those people. We don't know the names of those organizations. But if we refuse to act, God will continue to raise up people who will. The priest and the Levite, they have every opportunity to help the man, but they don't. And yet their inaction doesn't stop God. God does what needs to be done, even through a Samaritan. If the church refuses to be a place of welcome, of love, well, God will move outside of it, and God does. The question is, will we participate? Will we join in? Will we recognize it when it happens? And so the question for you today is, what are the biases that we uphold? Who are the people that we've been taught to dismiss, avoid, fear, maybe even see as competition? How is God breaking down those barriers? But also, who are the people who are already doing the work, who have so much to teach us, even as we call ourselves the church, followers of Jesus? True faith is not about being the only ones to do it, but true faith is about joining in wherever it is happening. Whether or not we choose to participate, God is always going to be on the move. God's kingdom will keep unfolding, keep breaking down barriers, keep lifting up people. We are invited to be a part of it. We are challenged to be a part of it. And so will we. And so this week, I encourage you to take one step, big or small, towards someone who teaches you how to be a neighbor. In this act, may we recognize the ways that God is at work in teaching us through unexpected people, unexpected places. And may we also have the courage to follow wherever love is leading. Let it be so. Amen. And now is your opportunity to share what might be bubbling up in you and how this message might be moving in you.
Good morning. Um, Thank you for that. I really appreciate how your sermons just it's more than just preaching the word, but it's a lot about self-reflection. Um, what's really been on my heart this year has been community and just being more involved in community. And I think it's very interesting because I don't think a lot of people even really know who our neighbors really are. We're so much into our phones and social media and online, and then whatever our media sources are telling us, um, we don't really go outside and really get to know who our neighbors are. And I'm not saying the people next door, but just out about in the community.
Mhm.
And I think that COVID kind of helped with that because, we had to stay in the house for so long. And then it's like slowly coming outside and, nobody really knows what to do with themselves.
Mhm.
Um, so just kind of getting more out in the community and just being a little bit more involved, I think helps getting to know who your neighbors really are. And then, you know, I think sometimes we also get caught up in well, I'll just go to the soup kitchen and volunteer for a day or sponsor, a child in a third world country. And we really think that that's helping our neighbors, but we never really get outside of our community, our world, and really get to know the people we live around, the people we work with. There are so many um, things that we could do more than just, you know, the few little volunteers here and there, and then, resharing a tweet or something, just really getting out there. So I really appreciate your sermon, and it just kind of reminds me of what I need to do personally and what God has put on my heart the last couple months.
Mhm.
But I really don't think a lot of us really know who our neighbors are.
Mhm.
So I think maybe getting off our phones, getting off of social media, turning off the news, and just going outdoors is probably a start for a lot of us. So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for the important concept of who is my neighbor, right? There's been a lot of writings on, the concept of a neighbor and what it actually is, because I think sometimes we, have made it geographic or made it the people who are next to us or live near us, but it's a moral concept, and that reaches beyond some of those boundaries. So thank you for having us think about that part of it. Yeah. Yeah, Judy.
Mine is more of a question, I guess. I'm thinking about the Samaritan. Was he dressed different? Was his color different? What was it that the people that walked along knew right away that he was a Samaritan? And and I think about today, our biggest division seems to be in this country between what some people say are liberal Democrats and the others say are MAGA Republicans. If I was to come across somebody today laying in the street, would I know whether that person was a liberal Democrat
Mm.
or a MAGA Republican to make a decision whether I was going to help that person or not? It just it just seems to me it's a natural thing to want to help somebody that's laying in the street. I mean, even if you didn't have any medical treatment or anything, you would just go to see if you could help comfort them until some help came or something. How do we ask that question about we want to avoid this person because why? What about their color or their dress or their religion? Or it just always has confused me about this story, that I think that most people would help somebody. And so the story just always seems to me that it's a political religious story in the Bible. And how did they know that that person maybe was covered with blood and dirt and dust? How did they know he was a Samaritan and that they should walk away from him?
Mhm.
The injured person wasn't the Samaritan.
That wasn't their, yeah, that wasn't, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've always, and I've always questioned that, it's like, how do we know that? How do we know who those?
I mean, it's good to ask questions. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, it's one of those things where Jesus,
Instinctively, I think most human beings would help someone.
well, we have thought that a lot
I think
in different cases.
I think what Brooke said in the the story before the story was Jesus knew that this guy, although he may have in his heart in some ways wanted to do the right thing, he was trying to make him uncomfortable. And it was a political statement. I'm sure it's going to be in the book we're reading too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that was the whole point of showing these differences. It didn't matter in that time, you would judge a Samaritan as somebody who would not help people because they were bad, bad. So the whole message was getting him to say Samaritan, or to say, as he did, the person who showed mercy.
Right.
Because the assumption would be he would never help anybody.
Right. And he can't be
good.
praised by Jesus.
Right.
No way, not him. And I think that that's also, something really funny about Jesus is he knows exactly where this man's woundedness is, his prejudices, and he goes exactly for that. Like, you're trying to test me. You're trying to ask me what the law says. I know exactly a story to tell you that's going to highlight somebody that you think could not ever do anything right. And so he knows right away like what's in this man's heart, and he knows what story he needs to hear. And whether or not that changed him, I don't know. But Jesus wanted to make it very clear that this is somebody that you aren't gonna like. Uh mhm.
The other person that isn't really brought to the forefront that much, but the innkeeper is not, he doesn't protest. He doesn't say, I won't let you Samaritan in, number one. But he also trusts this guy enough. I don't know how much 2 denarii are to know if that's like 2 months worth of care or 2 days worth of care. But to say, oh, I'll pay you when I come back. I mean, that's pretty willing of him. He's seeing the example that this man has put forth, and he's already helped this guy to be part of the team.
Mhm.
But he has to trust
Yeah.
the Samaritan too.
That's true. Yeah. A lot of people that make this happen. Somebody else that has to be willing to say, okay, I will, do my due diligence to make sure this person is cared for. So who we don't know. It could have been a Jew, but could have, you know, been a Samaritan. But if it was a Jew, that's also another person, right? Who has to open their hearts in this way. Hmm. Yeah, Adrian and Peter. And
There's so much going around in my head. I don't even think I can get to all of it. The first
you can
thing
try.
is we all know that Judy has a heart that if everybody had a heart like Judy, there wouldn't be any problem.
It's
Okay?
true, yes.
There are so many people. There are so many people who, we've heard all her stories and seen instances of someone who just is practically on death's door, and people are just like ignoring them.
Mhm.
And in today's world, people are more likely to say, oh, look at that, and take out their cell phones rather than actually help the person.
Mhm.
And so while I think this Bible story is telling us what we should do, we it's like people today just we need to get it out there, and let's not even begin to talk about all the people our country is ignoring,
Mhm.
and people in the country are in agreement with the fact that these people should be ignored.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's the part that just is so heartbreaking, and there is no way. It's kind of like this idea, I think, that you said about being able to ignore what you know is right, even right after you've been in church,
Yeah.
and you just go out and do something different. And so that, it's almost like you just want to take something and beat these people in our heads. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm sorry, Judy, I just couldn't help it. I said, oh my God, I wish everybody were like Judy, because, it's just people. It's right. Yeah, no. And I agree. And the other thing I was thinking was the idea that people can kind of bifurcate in their heads. Oh, hi, Howard.
Mm.
And you can see that with some of these young girls that are like at cash registers. I mean, it goes off and on. You just stand there and watch them. You know, it's like, this one's okay. No, you're lucky if you get a hello. The next one, oh, so nice to have you here.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian, I mean, you raise a good point. I mean, I think that that's part of breaking down the binaries is like it's not that we aren't that or that we don't want to be that. I think there's so much that gets in our way. I don't think it's our intention or, you know, what our values are and our deepest self, but it's we're distracted. It's we have so many things going on. It's, is this person going to harm me? I mean, I'm in that situation a lot where like I'm in the city and there's, men who need help. That's a hard one for me, right? Because I don't feel safe all the time, but you also need help. And it's hard. I mean, there's so many things that make decisions for us that we don't even know we're doing subconsciously. Um, and there are cases where we need to be thinking about our safety or whatever else is going on, but it's just there's just so much else that keeps us from being the people that we want to be in any given moment.
That example just made me think of something else I thought of while you were speaking. How in today's world you have to be careful because they'll be pretending that they need help in order to harm you. Like somebody on the side of the road where there's somebody else that's going to come up behind them. So you really do have to think about what's going to happen to me. What does this person mean? Can I, should I, will I, because what could happen to me? And I just think that this is this is one of those Bible stories where, it is wonderful and great. And in our heart of hearts, we all want to do what the Samaritan did, but it is really scary.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah.
It seems to
Peter.
me that it's important not to take the story too literally. Because recently a person died on an airplane and they had to complete the flight. People, the seat had to sit beside the dead person.
Yeah, I heard that.
I think it's important to know what you're doing. I think it's always important when you hear flight attendants saying, "Is there a doctor on board?" Because the doctor then can decide what really is going on. Whereas an ordinary layperson may do more harm than good.
That's true.
For instance, if somebody has been beat badly or lying on the roadside, it's important not to touch the person or to touch the person in the right way,
Mhm.
because you can do more harm to the person than good when you're thinking that you're wanting to do something good. Um, in our day, there are lots of laws and so forth that go into operation, so that what the Samaritan did in that day, the person could be tried
Mm.
for taking the person, putting them in a hospital, into a hotel
Yeah.
for several days or something, and to do that
Yeah.
sort of thing is very inappropriate today
Mhm.
and very dangerous, not only to the person but also to yourself. You may find yourself uh, having, being charged with doing something quite illegal. So it seems to me that the whole business of how you help, that is an inquiry in itself.
Mhm.
If you discover somebody on the street who is hurting, and obviously hurting, it's important to try to figure out what is going on in order to uh, to to do the right thing.
Mhm.
And so sometimes calling 911 is the very appropriate thing to do. But there may be other things that one can do as well to sort of make the person comfortable where they are, without disturbing the person too much, because you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
So caution is what I would say, that one should move with caution and with the right kind of inquiry. Sometimes putting out your cell phone is altogether appropriate to do, to call somebody who knows somebody. But we don't know. The point is not what they are doing, it's what you are doing.
Right.
So the point is, if you
Yes.
cover somebody, pulling out one's cell phone and calling for help may be a very appropriate thing to do. So,
Absolutely. Any other thoughts?
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
I really liked how you started
Mm.
your message
Mhm.
and to shake up the binaries. And it made me self-reflect. Your message made me self-reflect about when I'm not showing mercy. Um, and then all those people in my life who aren't Christian, but certainly teach me about what it means to be Christian.
Mm.
And even talking to Christians, people who call themselves Christians, who don't, who are more like the priest and the Levite, that think of themselves as being, well, the whole, Christian nationalism and all that. Um, but to look at the experience that God creates, whether you're with Him, with God or not, like in the drag show, and recognizing that as God at
Mhm.
work.
Mhm.
Um, and so many people are so wrapped up in their understandings of what's good and bad or Christian or not,
Right.
like the
Right.
person that's trying to trip Jesus up.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Thank you. Any other thoughts? All right. Well, we will turn now to our next song, The Love of God.